Hi there. Welcome back to the Real Film Chronicles podcast. As always, I'm Nathan.
And I'm Brian.
And in today's very special episode, we're going to be taking a look at a little film called Prey.
2022, directed by Dan Trachtenberg, starring Amber Midthunder and Dakota Beavers, and is the latest installment in the, I don't want to say long-running, but that's what I was going with, long-running franchise of Predator films that started out back in 1987 with a stellar film, sci-fi action with Arnold Schwarzenegger and a whole bunch of other awesome folks. And, fast forward almost 30 years, and here we are with Prey. Going back in time here, I mean, this is the fifth movie in the Predator franchise, but the seventh movie with Predators in it. Can you name all movies in chronological order? Including the crossover films.
Okay, so we got obviously Predator.
Yeah.
Then Predator 2.
1990, yep.
Then I think the next one was Alien versus Predator, chronologically.
Alien versus Predator, you're right, in 2004.
And then I think Predators next.
Wrong.
AVP Requiem.
Yep, in 2007.
Then Predators.
2010.
Then it was The Predator.
Yep, 2018.
And then Prey.
2022. That's all of them. I mean, it's pretty wild. I mean, the first movie, Predator, has been like a significant film, I think, for both of us. We could probably do an entire episode on that, granted enough time and energy to do such a thing. But
yeah,
the rest of the movie franchise, I mean, 1987 Predator, and then 1990, they were pretty quick to come out with a sequel. And I imagine, I did not look at the box office, but I imagine that movie bombed. It was ill received to the point where they just shelved the entire Predator franchise, only bringing it back for that Alien versus Predator in 2004.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Alien versus Predator, I think there's a whole comic book run. I don't know if it's Marvel or not, but like, I think that's kind of what, and I think that's loosely, that those two movies are loosely based on the comic book run of the Alien versus Predator series, right?
Yeah, I believe that was a Dark Horse comic, was that crossover thing. I don't know if it was just sort of like a limited series at the beginning. I'm not sure if it was a monthly thing, but it was a very popular comic throughout the 90s, and kind of, it almost served as like fan fiction, right? Because Predator and Alien, it's like their universes do kind of go hand in hand, to the point where you do want to see what happens when those two worlds collide. And
it's actually three worlds now, because I think there's some unofficial crossovers between, like, there are connections to the Blade Runner universe as well. I think Weyland-Yutani Corporation.
Yes.
There's like, I don't think there's ever been like an official crossover, but and there's a movie called Soldier, which is kind of unofficially set in the Blade Runner universe. So this universe is actually actually a lot bigger than potentially. This could be could be considered a cinematic universe.
I mean, this is the type of cinematic universe that I want. Something that isn't like completely planned out, but it's like, oh, we're going to take elements from all these wonderful films and how similar they are, and just bam, pop them all together.
So Bishop was a replicant. Oh my God. It all fits.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's possible, right?
Tangent, sorry.
What did you think of all these sequel movies to the Predator? I mean, obviously the first Predator movie is like a 5 out of 5. Where do all the other ones kind of land? Not looking for an official ranking here or anything, but like, where do those movies sit for you?
Honestly, okay, setting aside the Alien versus Predator movies, to me, that's their own thing. Like you said, like, it's just like fan fiction. I only watched the first one. I haven't seen Requiem yet. And B, that first one was just like, if it never existed, I'd be fine. I don't care. It's not great. But I was actually thinking about this because everyone's like, oh, Prey is like the best Predator movie since Predator. And I was thinking, like, there's only been like, Predator 2 was actually like, I watched that for the first time, I think a couple of years ago. And it was good, campy, fun. Again, it was like this genre mix, almost like the first one was like the kind of military, action hero genre mixed with sci-fi. And then it was almost like this detective, modern detective story or modern police story mixed with the sci-fi element put in there. It was actually good, kind of campy, cheesy fun in there.
Sure, yeah.
I actually I didn't hate Predators. It wasn't great, but I was like, I actually enjoyed that one. I think that one was directed by El Mariachi. What's his name there?
I'm drawing a blank on. Robert Rodriguez.
Robert Rodriguez. Yeah, I can't believe I blanked. I apologize, Mr.
For shame.
Rodriguez. That's bad.
Now that is the film where a bunch of like, quote unquote, like top killers or fighters, top human predators are brought to the actual predator planet and like unleashed into like a game preserve, really.
Yeah.
Where they are hunted by actual predators.
And that one,
right?
I had a lot of fond memories of that one. I liked that one for what it was. It was pretty solid. The Predator, I felt like somebody was trying to win a bet to make the worst movie ever made. Like, in order to make a movie that bad, you have to literally try to make it. You actively have to make it that bad. You have to really hate your audience to make a movie like The Predator. You have to like be a complete sadist to make a movie like The Predator. It was god awful. And then Prey was actually, it was good again. So like out of the 3 main sequels to this, or rather 4 sequels, like 3 of them I actually enjoy. So like this is actually, for me, it's a pretty solid franchise.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm in a similar boat. I mean, obviously seeing the first Predator a long time ago. I did see Predator 2 in the mid-90s. It was just like a VHS rental. I don't remember it from back in the day. It was just kind of like it wasn't nearly on the same level, but it was still half decent.
Honestly, it's not super memorable either. Like if you ask me the entire plot, as like Danny Glover fights an alien or he fights the Predator, as like, other than that, is like he's got a giant revolver. I know that. It's a big honking hand cannon.
And that one is really, I mean, it gave birth to the whole Alien versus Predator thing, because in the Predator ship near the end of the movie, we get to see like a xenomorph skull. And I think that is really where the crossover, the teaser was born, and then maybe a comic book series, but could be getting our facts wrong there. But regardless, Predators, comes out in 2010. It was just a fine movie. I haven't seen it in quite a long time. And then The Predator, I do remember going out to see this at the theater, and everyone's just kind of walking away with like, what was that? There were so many weird things going on there. It just seems like they really strayed away from what made the first Predator good. And then we're here with Prey. And I mean, I'm not holding back here. Like this was a stellar film for me. I really did like this. And I felt like this was the first real good follow-up to that first Predator film. Like it felt so good from top to bottom.
I will say,
where did this movie land for you?
I say it was like for me, it was about on par with Predator 2 and Predators. It was a solid film. It was a good film, but like, honestly, if all of the Predator sequels were erased from human history tomorrow, I'd be fine with, like, to me, Predator is a standalone film, and to me, in some ways, all the Predator sequels are just like, they're fine clones or they're fine homages, but I don't know, like, it's like, how can you make a sequel to something like The Godfather? It's impossible. But no, I don't know. Well, like, Prey was good. It was a good movie. But was it like a worthy successor to the Predator name? Like, to me, all of these Predator sequels are completely unnecessary. Not that any art is, of course, no art is necessary in and of itself. I've made this argument myself.
Throwing up his hands in reprehension here.
No, I'm trying to qualify things. Like, for me, it was
that's fair.
Predator was something special, and ever since then, they've been trying to recapture that.
Yeah,
and nobody, including the makers of Prey, have really fully recaptured that magic. If you want to argue that Prey came the closest, I mean, I'm not going to dispute that.
I think that's pretty fair, and I think it is fair to say, Predator stands alone at the top, and it really is that perfect culmination of talent and everything that happened in the movie, the story, everything was just kind of like a magical moment that happens in movies. That's why we like movies for those kinds of events. And I think the general consensus out there, I mean, it could be recency bias too, but they are saying Prey is the best one out of all these sequels. Like, it is as close to that first film. I think everyone recognizes, and I wouldn't try to argue this either, that nobody can get up to the same level as Predator. I wouldn't say it's as
close to the first film, but is it slightly, for me, it's like slightly better than Predators. Both of those films are okay.
Like, for me, this blows away all the sequels. Like, this is more memorable, and maybe this is recency bias, maybe this is hyperbolic, but for me, this is definitely better than all the sequels that have come since Predator.
It's solid. It's a well-made film, but I think this is one of those examples for me of the hype kind of ruining the movie for me, because like everyone's like, oh, this is the most amazing thing since Predator. This is gonna blow your mind. And like I was expecting everything everywhere all at once, or RRR levels of like genre chain defining action.
Yeah, I want to touch upon the hype thing here, because
huge
this movie was announced quite a while ago and it didn't really see a ton of marketing. And then we discover it's being released direct to streaming on Hulu or Disney Plus, depending on where you are in the world. And that can sort of be seen as like a negative. I mean, for me, it was seen as kind of a negative. That it wasn't worthy of a theatrical release, which could indicate the quality of it. They're just kind of dumping it on a streaming services, right? In an age now where everything was on streaming, and now we're going back to theaters, and it's like, you take a look at Mission Impossible, it's like, no, this movie is at a level where we will never put it, this would never debut on streaming, right? And now we have a movie that is kind of being dumped on streaming. So my expectations were going in a bit lower. So we basically have a movie where I'm going in with somewhat low expectations. Now, the race around the review comments and forums were definitely getting up there, but I always kind of try and take those with a grain of salt. But when I was sitting down to watch this, I was just like, this movie, what really works for me is just kind of how it boils things down, makes it a little more simple. And I think we've talked about this where I can't think of a better word for it. Like, it has a clear focus. It doesn't try to get too convoluted with extra side plots or characters or anything. It's just like it has a very singular focus, a very simple, and I'm saying simple with air quotes, but you can't see.
No, but simple in a good way.
It's like a simple story in a good way. Exactly.
Right? Those are for sure some of the strengths of the film. It didn't try to do extraneous stuff. It wasn't worried too much about the world building of the Alien and Predator world. Just like, no, here's this story of this character. And I think they did the right thing. It's like, oh, it's like almost like a genre film. It's like a period film. It's like, because like the first one was like, oh, what if it's like an action movie with, these action heroes, but then we throw in like this alien sci-fi element, and then it's like, oh, what if this like this period piece about, this indigenous tribe and these people trying to, make a life for themselves, but then throw in sci-fi alien element, right? So it's like following that formula, I think, was to the film's benefit. Without
a doubt. Prey is kind of a sequel of sorts, simply because of the year it takes place in, but
prequel?
It doesn't... I mean, did I not say prequel?
I think you said sequel. I could be losing my my hearing. It's not a prequel of sorts. It actually is a prequel.
It is a prequel, yeah, 100%. But I think I add the of sorts because it doesn't play into the overall story at all, right? And it's like, it doesn't necessarily tie into... The only thing we really know about the Predators is that they're a spacefaring race of...
Trophy hunters,
right? And it's like, that's kind of it. And I think the movie series, like, you're talking like, I'm thinking of the crossovers where they put aliens on Earth to like sort of breed them, and they go down, and there's like different like rites to these hunters go through, rites of passages or something to become, great predators or whatever. It's like all that is kind of thrown out the window here. They're just a solo predator, land on a planet, gonna go hunt down the biggest predator prey on Earth, and it's just like... No,
I think that all plays in. I guess we can get into spoilers, right?
100%.
Because the main character there, played by Amber Midthunder, I can't remember the character's name, but like that...
Naru,
right. Because like I kept... The whole thing is like, as soon as I heard that name, like Amber Midthunder, like what an awesome name. Like that should have just been your...
She was in Hell or High Water.
Was she? No. As who?
I can't remember the character's name, and she was also in a couple other ones. Sunshine Cleaning, from a number of years ago.
Right.
And most recently, from what I remember, Ice Road with Liam Neeson.
I still have to check that out.
Yeah, that's a heck of a ride.
Like I guess that should have been your character's name, man. Keep the name. Like every movie you're in, you need to keep your real name because that name is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Naru, because I think the whole thing is it's meant to parallel Naru's journey. The Predator's journey is meant to parallel her because like she's trying to become a hunter, but she has to pass that rite of passage. I can't remember what it's called. Essentially, like where they have to essentially become. They have to hunt a predator. They have to hunt something that's hunting them. And I got the feeling that the predator that got dropped off on Earth, that was the focus of this movie, was also like younger and essentially trying to. He was trying to prove himself, right? You see him kind of go up the ladder. Exactly. It's like, he gets the snake. He's like, oh, is this the top predator? No, then he fights the wolf, and he's kind of like moving his way kind of up the food chain. It's almost like a rite of passage as Naru is trying to face as well to become a hunter. So it feels like narratively, even though you don't get inside the predator's head too much, which is another good thing. It's like, I think it was meant to show like they were on the kind of same journey and their journeys were converging.
Well, I think it's a perfect example of this show don't tell, right? Like we don't need inner monologue from the predator. It's like we know what he's doing. There's a lot of exposition done through action. I mean, with Naru, she's out there practicing with her axe. We could see her evolving her skills, and we see her using her skills all over the place. And I love that she is like a really well-rounded, not just warrior, but like medicine is one of her strengths as well. And she can do it all, right? But she still has to prove herself to her tribe in terms of hunting because of those gender roles that were traditionally taken upon, right? And she's trying to like break free through that as well throughout the movie.
There was one scene where she actually finally takes on herself. She knows there's a big predator out there. It's like, it's not a bear. It's not the lion, really the mountain lion or the cougar. It's like, there's something else out there. And there's the one scene where she's walking. All the women are going to do like they're, I think, essentially gather food and prepare food and do all this other stuff. And she's walking in the opposite direction, and you get this overhead shot. Is like very clear imagery where she's literally walking against the crowd, out to nature.
I guess it's not very subtle, but it is very effective, right?
Well, to be fair, that follows the in the footsteps of the original Predator, which was not. It's not known for its subtlety. It's known for many things, but subtlety is not one of them.
One of the elements here is the predator fighting different animals. I mean, obviously, our humans are fighting animals as well, like they're hunting them, like the cougar, for instance. There's a tremendous bear fight scene where the bear is just kind of like doing its thing by the river. Naru gets its attention. The bear's chasing her, and then she escapes into a beaver dam, and the bear's going like absolutely wild getting into it. And then the predator is just like, oh, this is a hunter. And he basically starts wrestling the bear, sort of semi-invisible too. How'd you feel about, I can't help but say, but like the CGI-ness of all the animals in this film? Because I mean, it was definitely present.
I was going to bring this up, and this movie really suffers from, I guess there was something with the physics where like all the CG felt really weightless. Like the bear just, it's one thing to have like, I know it's CG, sure, that's fine, but like there's something subtle in the movements, right? In the physics that maybe unconsciously that we pick up on that we can't articulate. But when the bear is running, or like it's the way it moves, like it's a little bit too fast, like CGI tends to, or like, you know, you get a sense of like, oh, this is the bear's weight and this is how much it should be able to move. But it's like that whole bear chase, it took a lot of tension out for me because like the bear was just obviously not real, and not like in a stylized way that fit the tone, like an RRR.
Like, how does it compare? Well, two things here. How does it compare to like the bear and the Revenant?
No comparison at all. I mean, the Revenant,
right?
The Revenant was like, that was practically photoreal. There was a couple scenes where it's like, oh yeah, and you knew it was a CGI bear for obviously, but like if you were just like looking at that, that's pretty close to photorealistic, that bear. And like it felt like when it was like throwing Leonardo DiCaprio around, like you felt the weight of it on the ground, on the surroundings. There was something about the physics of that. And to me, I always went. I was thinking of that scene. Like I was thinking of movies like The Edge, where they actually got a real bear on set to do this stuff, and like, even though it wasn't like as flashy, it didn't run as fast, it didn't like tear apart a beaver dam, but like, if you were to have had a real bear on set and just do some CGI scenes, like that would have. We've done it before with Bart the bear. I don't know. I think Bart's in retirement now, or is he even alive?
Rest in peace, Bart. I'm pretty sure he's passed on. Yeah.
That is too bad.
I mean, bear acting since the 90s has been a pretty sad state of affairs since Bart is no longer acting. Unfortunately, we just cannot find another bear that can act as well as him.
It is too bad, but like that whole scene, and then the Predator was cloaked half the time, so it was just like one cartoon character wrestling another cartoon character, and it's like, it was okay, and it was fine, I guess.
So the other element I wanted to mention is the completely CGI animals in RRR, which we talked about recently, and how they actually give a disclaimer at the beginning of the movie. It's just like, listen, we don't want to hurt any actual animals. Everything is going to be very plainly CGI here. Does that carry over into other movies for you? Like for me, I didn't really mind the CGI animals, especially after having seen RRR, but I do understand that it doesn't necessarily fit the same tone.
That's the thing.
Because this is very grounded movie where there are a lot of practical effects. Like when the Predator is not invisible, there is like an actual person in there. I can't remember his name right now, but there is an actual suit on scene, right?
There?
And like there is actual interactions throughout the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, RRR was like, that's the thing, like tonally, it was in this heightened sense of reality where everything was just slightly above, everything was slightly stylized anyway. So like the animals being CG and some of them obviously CG at times, like it was okay. It fit the tone of the movie, but like this was, like you're saying, everything else is like super grounded. You had the real dog, you had other real animal. Well, not other real
Thank
animals.
goodness the dog was real.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a sequence near the beginning of the movie where the Predator is like sitting on the ground. He's invisible. You see an ant crawl on him. So the ant is now floating in the air. The ant CG, a CGI rat bites him. It like eats the ant, and then a CGI snake eats the rat, and then the Predator kills the snake.
It's also,
and it's just the scene is probably 100% CGI. I'm not sure any photography was done for that sequence.
And obviously, so like all those scenes really did not help the movie. Like use practical effects for that. Like that stuff was so, you could have easily used practical effects for the snake and stuff. I mean, this is one of the issues, like this over reliance on CG. Not that CG is terrible all the time. It should be used and it can be used effectively, but like those scenes really just stuck out like a sore thumb when you had like the rest of it, like the beautiful cinematography and the other scenes with the actual actors and stuff doing stuff, and it looked really, really good. And then you switch to this like the CG bear fight, and you're just like, why are you doing this?
Well, I kind of think to myself, what if this movie was done in 1991 without the added benefit of CGI? And it's like, what would they have done for a sequence like that to sort of like talk about the food chain? Because that was essentially the Predator learning about, all right, who's killing who in the woods here. Rat eats ants, snake eats rat, and it's just like, I think because of those limitations with effects, that we would have got a different scene that might have been even a little more creative. But I mean, I'm not here to play like what could have or should have with that. It's basically there. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the cinematography, but this movie for the most part looked gorgeous all the way through. Like the shots, the landscapes, the way the action was shot. There's that one scene where I think the actor Dakota Beavers, I can't remember his Taboo or Tab, is basically like fighting the Predator, and the action is nice and clear. Like the camera isn't too shaky. I can understand what's going on. I could really appreciate the action that I was seeing here.
It was okay. It was well shot, but it was like, this is where kind of some of the hype probably kind of killed it for me. I was like, oh, it's the best action movie since Predator. And I was like, I was expecting something a bit more. It was like, it was good. It was solid, but it wasn't like mind blowing. It wasn't super great. It was like, the problem is like the bar has been set so low by like, I keep thinking of like the most recent one, like Gray Man, and that the worst of the worst was like that airplane fight. And then when he's falling out of the airplane, remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And just like CGI garbage on screen, this camera spinning around. It's like when the bar is set that low, It's like, yeah, everybody who displays a filmmaker who displays the slightest bit of competence looks amazing by comparison.
Maybe that's how. Maybe that's a good critique on the current state of movies.
And I'm not saying Prey was. Yeah, I'm not saying Prey was bad. It was well shot. It was well done. And that scene when Dakota Beaver's character was fighting the Predator single-handedly, kick ass scene too. Like this guy was like built up as this awesome hunter, and like I love the setups and payoffs with this, and like none of the characters went out like chumps.
Well, I really love because they previously established like other humans have fought the Predator and they're just falling, like they just can't compete against him, right? If it's just like, no, this guy is a warrior and he's got the moves, and it's just like he was bested in the battle, but it was still pretty neat to see his interaction with the Predator. And I think I really enjoyed
good, but not mind-blowing.
How the humans, fair enough. I liked how the humans were shown to be really adapting and like learning the Predator without being explicitly told, to the point where, I mean, essentially how she kills them at the end. Like she sees the helmet in action. She knows about the the triangle lasers and the little darts that home in on where it is. And it's like she uses that against him in the end. It's just like, without the context of knowing how technology works, it's just like, that does this, like puts two and two together. And it's like, it all comes together, I think, really nicely here. I was just really satisfied with how she creatively took down the Predator, kind of like Arnold taking him down in the original.
Yeah, no, it was. There were a couple of humorous beats too, where like at the time, was it like 1794 or something, or whatever, the
1719
okay,
takes place. Yeah.
So even further back, whereas like there's the group of French, I don't know if would they be couleur de bois, but like really French trappers who came over to get furs. You see like there was an obvious parallel drawn between the European colonial forces, kind of trophy hunting, where the buffalo were all, you saw that shot of the buffalo and they're all killed. They didn't take them for the meat, they just took them for the skin and left the rest to rot. Completely wasteful. It was all just like kind of trophy hunting. So drawing that parallel between the European colonial forces and the Predators, which was a nice little touch as well. Essentially showing when Naru does defeat him at the end, it's essentially like a kick in the balls to European colonialists as well. But yeah, the whole how she beats him. All the technology, the humor shot. Right, I was talking about like there's some humorous moments where like they have the flintlocks there. And then they all shoot at him at once, right? There's like 20, 30 guys and they're all shooting, and then there's like, and he has his like his shield there puts up, and then he lowers it. This like little humorous beat where like he looks over his shield and is like they're all having to like reload and like put the gunpowder back in and then reload like the actual like the ball bearing and everything.
Which is a great juxtaposition to the first movie where he unloads like 5,000 rounds into the jungle without stopping. It's just like guns have come a long way. Like these guys are single shot, minutes between each shot.
Or like the one Frenchman who loses his leg there and he's like, I'll tell you how to use the gun, right? I'll tell you how to use the flintlock. It's like, okay. Which does come in handy later on.
Well, it's great. She has basically one shot, and she does make it count.
Like
but
Eminem
she
that way.
Shoots the Predator in the back of the head, and so his helmet flies off the front. This Predator, I mean, this is what's great. We don't know everything about them and their biology. He survives a bullet to the head. He loses his helmet, and he keeps going with all the ferocity. I mean, maybe their brains are real tiny or stored somewhere else, but I didn't really like that. Where it's just like, yeah, they can get hit by bullets and still keep going, right?
I don't think Predators think with that head. Yeah, the whole thing was kind of neat to see at one point too. So I was like, oh, like the Predator's kind of working his way up the food chain until he finds human beings. Like, oh, but they're like the human beings. Like, oh, he's like he just wrestled a grizzly bear. But then you see is like, oh, when you have the humans using their weapons and using their tactics, even what we think of as ancient weapons like spears and bow and arrow, those things are all pretty deadly, especially in the right hands.
Oh yeah.
Like tomahawks, like axes, all that kind of stuff. Like flintlocks, you get a good shot. Like they're like the old style gun from 300 years ago is still going to kill you as surely as a gun today, right? So they're slower, but they're still super deadly. And it's like, and the other thing too is like you see when that first group comes to bring Naru back to the to the rest of the tribe, and they're fighting the predator there. And they start to use tactics where like they're spreading out and they're surrounding him and they're coming in from different angles using different weapons. So it's like, okay, you start to see why the human beings are like the apex predator,
the alpha predator,
and like why it's like, oh, he wrestled the bear, but he's having trouble with humans. But you know, the humans are using they're using technology, they're using their weapons, but they're also using their brains to think things through. And like, I love that one scene when the French trappers there, they almost get him, right? He falls in for the bait. They use Naru and her brother there as bait. He's coming in. He gets his leg trapped in there, and all of a sudden it's like the nets come in and they're shooting him, and it's like, oh man, they got him. He was down for the count there for a second until he's like, he just like goes into beast mode, like shoots his all technology off, and he's forced to use all his like his extra lives there to get himself out of the situation. He's like he was like. That's where like the little beats like that where he's like, oh, this predator's maybe a little bit younger, a little bit newer. He's like a little bit cocky there, and he almost gets taken down by the French fur traders there.
Well, that's one of the elements is that the predator historically, like in previous movies, and everything, they kind of have like cheat codes built into their weapons and whatnot. I mean, even the invisibility is can be seen as kind of unfair at times, right? And it's like, no, I mean, they do have to protect themselves in a certain way. It's just like, yeah, they're going down there, but they're not just going to go fight and just choose to die, right? It's just like they do have to use their technology to get out of hot water.
I saw some people. So what's the dude's name? I can't remember.
It's Taabe is the character.
Tabe? I can't remember. I'm trying to think of how it was said in the movie, but I can't remember. But like some people were saying online is like, oh, in that fight, like the predator was being cheap when he turned on his cloaking technology in the middle of that fight. And other people were like, you know what? In a life or death struggle, when it's a survival, it's like it's not cheap. It's about, because they mentioned several times, it's like in the movie, like survival was a key theme, right? It's like, is it battle? It's like it's not about battle. It's not about being hunter or prey. This is about survival. So like in the middle of a battle, like you know, like people saying, oh, it was dishonorable to turn on his cloaking device because he was getting his butt kicked. But it's like in a survival situation, you're going to use every tool at your disposal to survive. So I think the predator was overwhelmed. I don't think he was expecting that much of a fight, but I don't think it was like cheap either. I don't think it was dishonorable. Like in any given situation, you're going to use any tool available to survive.
Like something probably clicks halfway through that battle where the predator's like, oh wow, this guy, like I am actually going to get murdered out here. It's just like, I got to get out of this thing and like go fight another day. And the invisibility thing is definitely kind of like a nice, quick, easy way out. And he takes advantage of that, but he does not get to take advantage of it again later. And he is absolutely bested.
This is as far as I go.
Right? And they did fit the line in there. If it bleeds, we can kill it.
So I wasn't sure about that, but they pretty much did it perfectly. They didn't stop the music. They didn't like zoom in on him. They didn't call attention to it. It was just like, if it bleeds, we can kill it. It was in the context. It made perfect sense. It was a nice little callback. I like that they didn't keep doing other callbacks to what the whole thing was like. Didn't like recycle other lines with like that one key line. It's like, you know what? That's the perfect way to do an homage.
Exactly. It was fairly reserved. It was really, I think, tastefully done. There's a lot of wonderful little things happening here. And I mean, I do have to apologize because we are struggling with some of the names like Dakota Beaver's character. This movie was shot in two languages, English and Comanche, which is the Comanche tribe is represented here. This is Amber Midthunder's character, everybody. And they have both languages spoken throughout the movie. So even if you're watching the English version, they do at times speak in Comanche language, and they don't really translate it on the screen for you either. And I went back and I was watching little bits of the movie with the subtitles on for English, and it just says, you know, Comanche speaking or Comanche words spoken here. But I am kind of interested to go back and rewatch this movie, what I inevitably do, in that language and see if it has a little bit of a different feel for it, because it's just it's fairly unique to have a big modern movie like this from the indigenous Native American perspective, right?
Well, it was great. It was, I think people pointed out, it was all like focused, like the main cast was all indigenous. I think the only non-indigenous cast were the French fur traders, who really were just kind of more like background characters. Only a couple really get any kind of characterization. But yeah, it was great to see that kind of representation. It was like, yeah, you can make a a big budget Hollywood blockbuster starring non-white people, and it still kicks butt, and it still makes bank. It's still getting critical acclaim. So just blowing all those kind of myths out of the water is like, oh, you have to cast white actors, white well-known actors to make your film successful and be successful. And it's like all that kind of quote unquote standard Hollywood logic is like, a movie like this comes along and shows like, no, you don't need a white male lead to sell your film at all. So it was nice to have that representation, have more opportunities for, in this case, Indigenous people to get these kind of roles. But also it was nice just to kind of blow a hole through, these kind of racist, biased stereotypes. Which, speaking of which, do we want to touch on? There was one thing I did want to touch on. I'm answering my own question when I said, "Did we want to touch on it?" And I'm saying yes. The whole
you're forcing me into this.
The whole kind of sexist dialogue surrounding Amber Midthunder's character and her character being a Mary Sue and all that kind of nonsense showing its head again.
Yeah, I mean, this is her character. One of the arcs is breaking through these traditional gender roles in these cultures, right? It's relevant back then. I think it would still be relevant now. What did you have to say about it?
Yeah, well, I thought, because going into it, I was like, you hear the term Mary Sue getting tossed around a lot with every time there's a female lead, especially like in an action movie. And it's like, okay, the term Mary Sue basically means like it's here's a female character, the lead character who's just like good at everything and has no challenges to overcome. So it's like, okay, but then I watched the movie, and the whole movie is about Naru failing constantly to be in her. She's constantly trying to become a hunter. She's constantly getting her butt kicked, and slowly but surely getting better over time until eventually she beats the predator. So it was like the whole movie was essentially a counterpoint to these stupid arguments about her being a Mary.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So like the first time she goes hunting with her brother there, she literally gets knocked unconscious, and he has to carry her home on his back. Yeah. And then she's like, but she gets up and she goes out again. And she's like,
it's that perseverance. Yeah.
It's the perseverance. She threw, with a tomahawk, she realizes, oh, I'm throwing this, but it takes me a while to retrieve it. So she makes the rope. It makes one of the coolest weapons in movie history, where it's like the tomahawk with a rope. So she throws the tomahawk, pulls it back with the rope into her hand, and like she practices with that. But yeah, and again, she keeps going out, and she gets attacked by the bear, and the only reason she's alive is because the predator happens to intervene at the same time and kill the bear.
Yeah.
So she's constantly kind of on the back foot. She gets captured by the French fur traders and put up for bait. Yeah. She's constantly, but then she's constantly fighting from the bottom until eventually it's like, she's constantly learning and getting better.
It's kind of like that classic underdog story that I think everyone can kind of root for. It's that Rocky story of just like, you've seen them getting beat. You see them get back up again repeatedly over and over.
And I kind of appreciated that, because I think there is a trope where it's not just female characters, but like any main character is like their abilities that they're just awesome at everything. And just go back and see is like, no, here's a flawed character who kind of sucks at the beginning. She's slowly getting better. She's using the knowledge she has, right? She used that flower that, I don't know if it slows the blood.
In the movie, they said it, quote, cools the blood.
Yeah. I don't know what the actual science is, or if there is science. I didn't look it up because I didn't want it ruined. It was like, it was used for medicinal purposes. I assumed it was just like, oh, it maybe like slows circulation so that you don't bleed out as fast. But either way, like she realizes like, oh, whatever it is, you eat that herb and the predator can't see you, right? So it's like, okay. It was like a nice little twist, because like when she fell into that bog and she got covered in mud, I thought they were going to do the same thing as Arnold did. I was like, okay, but they did something a little bit different, which I appreciate.
Well, and I kind of liked that she did have that background. I mean, obviously she's going to have more of those traditional roles, like the women in these tribes and whatnot were more, can I say, the homemakers? Like they're staying, at camp, making food, preparing stuff. They're doing the medicine while all the guys are out hunting, and they give her a chance to go out hunting. But I mean, she's not the greatest, but she has skill. And even when there's a group of them going out, they're like, no, you're staying behind. And her brother, who is basically like the leader at this point, and he's also trying to prove himself, because I think their chief is kind of dying, or he's injured or something, right? And she's like, no, well, she has value even in terms of medical, and her medical knowledge, but also her tracking
skills.
Just like everybody has skills that we could take advantage of. And when it's a group of hunters out there, you end up taking advantage of it. And I love that scene where they find the injured guy in the woods and just like, okay, now we go to work. And we see them stripping stuff off the trees. They make a stretcher, and she's tending to him. She's putting stuff in his wounds and she feeds him the orange flower, which basically prevents quick bleeding. Like it slows his blood down or cools it down or whatever it does, whatever it is. But it's like everybody has some value there. And I think it was kind of neat seeing she has that medical background. The Predator also is shown traditionally fixing himself up. I mean, in this movie, he's like stitching up some wounds from arrows and whatnot. And I think even in the original movie, he has to be out there. He has to have some medical background to fix himself up because nobody's going to do it for him. So she has that advantage of the medicine to basically help her out in that hunt that can become invaluable. Because if the Predator couldn't heal himself or couldn't stitch himself up, he's just going to bleed out there as well, right? It
was nice to see the Predator taking some blows too, both from like the wolf, I think gets him. I think the bear gets him. You see him bleeding. I think when he's fighting the other tribe mates there with the spears, the one gets him right through the foot. And like you see him get really angry, and it's like essentially like pin this guy to the tree with I think the two spears there, and like you can see him pissed off. But also, I did want to point out too, in terms of strength, this is the first time I think we get to see like there's some real clues as to how strong the Predator actually is. So in that bear scene, when he kills the bear, he lifts it straight over his head. Right? It was a cool scene. The CGI was a bit better; it would have been even cooler. Where the blood's dripping down from the bear, and like it covers him. And he has his cloaking device on, so he's slowly revealed in this dripping blood coming down him, which is kind of horrifying. But I think in the movie, it's supposed to be a grizzly bear, which is average male grizzly bear is about 1,000 pounds. So looking at world record for clean and jerk, which is you take the barbell, lift it up, and then lift it over your head.
Yep.
Highest amount on record by a human being was 586 pounds. The maximum for military press, which is just lifting stuff straight over your head, is 468 pounds. So the Predator is essentially, we'll say, roughly twice as strong as peak physical human specimens, which also
those guys are training.
Yeah. So it's like, which also explains why in the first movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, even though he looked like he was in good shape, but he's not putting up a fight. Like no human being, or like 99.999% of human beings are not one-on-one and not putting up a physical fight without any weapons involved. You stand no chance. Whether you're Arnold Schwarzenegger or again, whether you're Amber Mid-Thunder or anybody in between, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like physically, one-on-one, if you don't have any weapons, it's like, you're just not going to win that fight, right?
That's the beautiful thing. Like anyone can realistically take on a Predator because you're using your brain and your skills to do it, not necessarily just raw strength.
Even that last fight, even that last poorly lit, foggy fight, which was kind of so frustrating.
I didn't get that. I
don't know. It was at nighttime. But was the thing too. I was thinking back because I happened to watch Predator recently, with my son, who loved it. And I remember the climax in the first film was at night as well, but it was at night, but it was clear. I don't know. Like this one it was at night, but like I don't know whether it was smoke or fog or like an Instagram filter or something over the whole scene. But it was just like, why are you doing this, guys? It's like, make it so I can actually like clearly see what's going on. It was just frustrating for like, you see other shots in the movie and they're beautiful and they're well lit. And it comes to the finale and it's like, it's dark and foggy. I'm like,
interesting.
Really?
Yeah. I honestly did not get that. I felt like things were pretty visible throughout the film. Maybe I'll go back and rewatch that and see what you're talking about. But
yeah, but in that scene where it shows like, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the first one, just like any other Predator movies, like you need to use your brains. You need to, and she was shown using your brains before. It was like when she was they were chasing the lion, aka the mountain lion / cougar. She was like, no, instead of rushing this thing, like let's set some bait, draw it out, and then attack it. Which that's at that point, things go wrong. She gets knocked out. Her brother carries her out. But he reveals later on, is like, no, the only way I got that cat was I used your strategy. right? I couldn't get him. I couldn't just take on a cougar one-on-one like that. I used your strategy. I baited him out. Yeah. So showing is like, her smarts, like it does work. She's a strategizer, right? So at the end was like when she's been pushed to the brink, she's been pushed down by, like her brother was outshining her. She was pushed down by the French trappers. She was pushed down by the predator at one point, by the bear. Everyone keeps pushing her down. She keeps getting back up. And finally, like that last scene where she just had enough, she captures that one fur trader and like she cuts off the dude's leg to use as bait. Use him as bait and use his leg later as bait. And she's like, you see it in her eyes, it's like, yeah, I've had enough of this garbage. She's like, no, like she's in her beast mode. It was kind of neat to see like the build up to that point is like, no, I know I have to beat him. There was a cool line earlier in the film where it's like you were saying, where like her brother essentially said, oh yeah, she does have value in the hunting party to come along. And she's like, I know I can find this guy now. I know I can find the lion or whatever. And he's like, I know you can because you have to. It's like, I put my neck out for you. And like, you said this, you keep saying you're good at this. Like, well, now you got to put up or shut up. And like at that point at the end, which is like, yeah, she's putting it all in the line. She's like, yeah, she's putting up. And it was kind of neat to see that where it's like, yeah, it's not about physical. She can't take him on any more than Arnold Schwarzenegger could, or any more than Danny Glover could. I think Danny Glover came closer than Arnold Schwarzenegger though, physically, somehow.
Must have been a smaller predator after him. It was an urban predator.
Yeah, but just using bits and pieces, like you said, using the helmet against him. There was one quick scene, and I had to go back and watch it a couple times where, spoiler alert, when the predator gets his arm cut off. Again, it was, the rest of the scene was okay, but there were a couple like really quick cuts in that one instance. I think she was coming at him with a spear, and his hand was stuck, like his claw. He had the Wolverine claws, and he went to get her one time. It was stuck in the tree, so she comes at him with the spear. But he puts his own shield up, which I believe has a sharp edge on it.
Yeah.
The first time around, I thought, oh, he cut off his own arm to get out of the way, like the story she told about the beaver eating its own leg off to get the trap. But I was reading online and then went back and watched that scene again. It's like, I think it was unintentional, right? Where he puts up the shield to kind of block the spear, but the spear drives the shield over it gets his arm cut off. But again, this is why for me the movie was good. The action was good, but not great. It's like, that scene, it was kind of pivotal, and that's where you get the quick cuts where I can't tell exactly what's going on. It was kind of frustrating because like the rest of that scene was like, it was so good, and so the editing was clear, even though like it was murky to look at the picture, but the rest of the scene was easy to follow the action, like you were saying. But then you have like this one pivotal scene where he gets his arm cut off.
I mean, I guess even on your first viewing of that, you understood that he did technically cut his own arm off with a shield, but
it wasn't clear whether it was intentional or not.
Well, that's right. It's just like you got the same conclusion from watching it. So was the action too quick or not quick enough? I don't know, but maybe you need to check some of your TV settings on that final scene.
Well, it wasn't the murkiness, but like the editing was just like, maybe it was just like the editor's apprentice on that for those couple seconds or something. I don't know.
It's harsh. So with all that being said, do you have anything else to add before we jump into ratings here?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything. I think we talked about the dog earlier on, but like that was like probably the best dog in cinematic history.
Never kill the dog. I honestly thought they were going to leave the dog out because the dog during the bear scene basically takes off because she tells him, leave. And we don't see the dog again for quite a while. And the dog does come back and, survives the whole ordeal, which was nice.
Well, I love that whole bear scene where he's like, he's hauling ass. He's like luring the bear away.
Yeah.
And then you see him come back the other direction and it's like almost like, what are you doing standing there? I lured the bear away so you could get away. What are you doing? Run. But like, yeah, it was like, I think the dog was pretty awesome. You gotta give that guy props. He survived the whole movie and he was kind of taking names and kicking butt as he went too.
He was a good boy. So where do you land with your rating? And just a reminder to everybody, we rate on Letterboxd, which is a half star to 5-star scale with a option for a heart at the end, which is pretty much however you like to interpret it. You love the movie, you like the movie, whatever. And Yeah, where do you stand on your 5-star rating of this film?
For me, this was, I think, a good 3.5 star film. It was definitely above average. Again, it could be just like there's so much hype going into it that maybe it was one of those things where like I had my expectations way up high. It was artificially inflated, and maybe upon further viewing,
it sounds that way. Yeah,
it might change. But on the other hand, I mean, the actors were really good. The story was pretty tight, but I just think it didn't bring a whole lot new to the genre, really, aside from the inclusion and diversity, which I think is really important.
I mean, it's one of the most significant aspects of the film. I mean, we don't talk a lot about it, but I know that there's a lot of talk about that, in the Twitter sphere or whatever. It's good to see that, as you said before, that representation on screen. And it's like, I want to see more of that stuff. I want to see more of these stories taking place from these perspectives.
It's like all of a sudden, like all these people I never would have like Amber Midthunder, I never would have known, or like Dakota Beavers. I want to see these people in in all my movies going forward, right? These were amazing actors. Had it not been for this film, and like had it not been for specifically a push for more representation and more stories about more varied people, would these people have gotten the opportunity to be in a big budget movie? Would we have gotten the opportunity to see them? I don't know, right? So like you start to see some of the positive outcomes of some of these progressive policies and efforts, right?
And I'm hoping that the reason the film was pushed direct to video and didn't get a theatrical release is, I hope it's not because it is a Native American cast and that studio execs would think, oh, maybe that might be a tough sell. I'm hoping it's because the previous couple of Predator movies have been hot trash.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like, oh, another Predator movie? Yeah, no one's going to go out to the theater to see that. Yeah. And because it's on streaming, you actually get more people watching this, even on a casual basis, just to check it out. And they can be surprised at like how good it is. I think that's why you see a lot of the hype is that nobody was expecting another Predator movie to be even half decent. It was going to be garbage again.
Yeah.
But this movie, like, it's over top. Everyone's, I mean, if you told me 4 years ago there's another Predator movie coming, be like, okay, I'm not excited for that. And then I got this, man, I'm pumped for this.
Yeah, so I'm not super excited about it, but it was a well-made film. I gotta give credit where credit is due. So like for me, it's a solid 3.5 out of 5. So Brian, where did this end up for you?
My initial rating was 4 stars, and it was one of those things where if I could give it like 4.25 stars out of like 4.5, and I have a feeling that I'm going to watch this again, and I do, these franchises, I like going through. Like I've gone through the Predator series, I've gone through the Alien series, I watch them kind of like in chronological order, they all mix together. I really look forward to checking this one out again, and when this one, I was trying to go back and check out a couple scenes, which I honestly never do. And I spent 20 minutes rewatching sections of the movie. It'd be like, this was good. Like I kind of want to watch this again right now, but obviously we gotta sit down and talk about this film instead.
Yeah,
I was just rewatching it all the time. So this movie I really liked. I felt it was really refreshing. The perspective was really good. I liked the focused storytelling. I liked the characters. I liked the action of the movie. I thought it was very smart. And this is really, at its core, like it, for me, captured a bit of that original Predator imagination. I was like, if this was the first sequel to Predator, it'd be like, oh man, this is a killer series. But it's like, they really, I mean, maybe the Predator stuff is difficult to get into a compelling story. And after 30 years, I think they actually did it.
Yeah. I think that this movie for me didn't invoke the first one too much, or the feeling of the first one too much, which is actually a good thing. It was its own thing. One thing I didn't touch on was the look of the Predator in this one when they took his mask off. And I was like, for some reason they redesigned it and it looked pretty bad, I thought. Like compared to like, you look at the original Predator and like the face was so much more expressive. And it was like, It was a perfect design. And they went back and they changed it to the point where it's like, sure, it's a Predator in general.
Something about his eyes in this one, I mean, it wasn't similar because the other Predators have been guys in suits. And this one, you kind of feel like it might be a guy in a suit for the most part, but they did like CGI over the Predator's face. Like he looked a bit odd.
To their detriment. I don't know why I guess everyone wants to put their new stamp on it. But like,
well, it's kind of a thing where it's just like, oh, maybe there is maybe it's a hint at like some diversity in the Predator,
maybe
like alien race, right? It's just like, oh, could be an early Predator. It could be from a different group. I don't know. But he looked different enough when he didn't need to look any different from the previous Predators because he got that killer mask on. It's like, that's enough to make him stand out. I mean, that mask, it was almost like cool. like a bone, like skull on his head. It was just so cool.
I figured it was like a skull from another species from another planet or something, right? It was like it was really a neat integration of like the technological and the biological. Like it was kind of neat. You didn't need to redesign them. That's another thing for me. It's like you got something iconic like that. It's like why would you change it? Why mess with a good thing? But
yeah,
either way, I don't think we were too far off. I really enjoyed the movie. You really, really enjoyed the movie. So would you recommend people picking this up on physical media, Brian?
Yeah, well, I mean, recommendations, like I will probably be buying this on physical media, a nice little 4K release. And I did read, I believe it is getting released on physical media later in 2022.
Awesome.
Instead of just streaming, because that's always a fear with some of these movies that are only on streaming. Like Netflix is notorious for just never releasing their movies
that whole
on
HBO
on media.
Fiasco there.
Yeah. Are you going to buy this?
I will when it comes down in price. For me, again, too, maybe it's part of it because I watched Predator recently too, and I'm just still like high on that
it's fair.
Like I don't have the same urge to rewatch any of the Predator sequels, including Prey, to the degree I have with Predator. If you were gun to my head, if you're like, oh, we're gonna watch a Predator sequel tonight, which one do you want to watch? It's like, sure, we'll go with Prey, 100%. But I'm not like none of the Predator sequels really get my engine running to that degree. But like, sure, if people want to say like rank them as like, is Prey the best one since the original? Sure. Is that a high bar to clear? Not particularly, I guess. So
no, it's not. I mean, really, the Predator sequels have been
solid,
generally regarded poorly. Okay. I think.
Like I mean, like I said, I enjoyed the Predator 2 for its campiness. I enjoyed Predators. It was a solid film for what it was. But they weren't like genre defining, mind bending. They weren't amazing movies. And this one is, it's the best Predator movie since the original Predator. But that being said, Hollywood, quit while you're ahead. Stop trying to recapture that lightning in a bottle. Pick a different property, create something new. For the love of God, and stop trying to make Predator movies.
Well, my friend and I were talking after watching this movie. It's like, Die Hard got a never-ending supply of sequels and stuff, and also like knockoffs of like, it's Die Hard in an airplane, it's Die Hard on a train. This movie is a perfect example of it's Predator, but in the early 1700s Native American tribe. Okay, how about one in the 1400s Mayan culture? How about Predator over in China? Bring in those foreign currency box office numbers. It's just like there could be a never-ending supply of fairly tight stories out there, right?